Hello, everyone, and welcome to this session of the Thriving Families Africa Summit. And today I have a friend, a colleague, someone I have worked alongside and learned so much from in this space of positive psychology and African ways of healing. And we are exploring how African wisdom can now reach family well-being right now. I tend to feel like there's such a pull between these are Western practices, these are African. We need to go back to our African ways of healing. And there's no better person to have this conversation than Dr. Wairimu Churu. And thank you so much for agreeing to come to this session and being part of this summit.
Thanks for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
All
It was
right.
actually a wonderful conversation.
Yes, I look forward. I have heard you speak passionately into that space, and I feel like we don't have enough people really helping us look at the links and the similarities as opposed to looking at the differences. So just tell us a bit about your journey, how you came into this kind of work and in this kind of space.
That is not a very um, huge journey, if you like. It was by chance. I was doing a I was doing a master's in African studies in the early 90s. And that master's led me to, it was required that you actually find the African ways of living as the African people live it today, rather than kind of putting it in the archive, looking at it in the archives and kind of old stories. And that is what made me encounter our people in the ordinary day-to-day lives and find their meaning lives. What gives meaning to their lives? What are the questions they ask? What are the fears they entertain? And that kind of thing. And it became apparent to me how deeply into the African worldview we all are, but how afraid we are of it. Instead of feeling at home in our own world, we live in it, but we fear it. And I just found that our people tend to be divided. And that was the early 90s. I myself was very young and struggling. And I started wondering, that does not seem like what it ought to be. Like it sounded like being Christian. I am Christian, and
Right.
being Christian, and I met a lot of Christians from different churches, different kind of communities. And it sounded like being Christian counter-indicated being African. And something didn't sit right with me there because there's nothing I'm going to do about being African. I am African. These people are African. They want to be Christian. And you can't be living your whole life in this terrible unease. And so that set me on the journey, if you like. And it's kind of spiraled. I ended up teaching African culture and how African people encounter it. That unease has continued to be something I meet every time I encounter young people. Something little shifts with generations, but not a lot. There's still a predominant, a fearful on the conscious level, a very fearful way of approaching African tradition as something that is to be put on the back burner, uh, preferably forgotten, um, not very useful for life in contemporary world. And at the same time, 80%, perhaps 90% of people's meaning worlds is coming from that world. So I said, I think we need to have this conversation and to start looking and searching. And I call it searching because my generation are children of people who were removed from African culture almost violently.
Right.
And therefore, our parents were not able to teach us very much. They would tell us it was a great life, but they're not able to teach us because they themselves were not properly schooled in it. And so they know that they lost something precious, but they don't know how to articulate it. In the meantime, the older generation that could have articulated it was dying away. And so it becomes a frantic search. And we have to be grateful to those people that took the courage to do some research earlier on in the 60s and 70s. And the search has led me to a point of realizing that there is so much unity across the continent. If you go to the deeper levels, not to the practice levels, but the deeper, meaningful levels, there's a lot of unity. And then for me personally to discover that not only is there unity across the continent, but also there's unity with being authentically human, which is what Christianity, for example, is all about. Authentic Christianity is about being fully alive as a human being, being responsive to the greater, whatever you consider to be the greater spirit,
Right.
God, the supreme being. That means being authentic as a human being. Africans know that so very well. It's being caught up in specific practices that kind of grounds us and makes us feel divided and different. And so this search has become for me a vital part of my work because we need to restore a sense of wholeness and a sense of well-being and a sense of being adequate for the world, because this is the other thing you encounter with African people, a sense that young people, a sense that we are inadequate, we are not prepared for the world of today, we don't fit, we somehow need someone else to come and save us or to adopt somebody else's story. And it is nothing can be further from the truth. We are adequate. We are together, not individually alone, but together. We walk this journey and recreate and reconstruct our meanings and find God and find wholeness. As we walk this journey together, it is the wisdom our ancestors taught. It's exactly the same wisdom our ancestors taught. And this is coming from, as I can say, maybe now 30 years of really serious reflection and working with others. People like Professor Magesa, who died recently, Professor Ogot, Bethwell Ogot, who had a really big linkage, if you like, even with ancient Kemet. And those, when you study those deep connections, you also realize actually that even what the Western world has proposed to us, and what we are saying, the studies propose to us, the shoulders on which they stand, come from our traditions. So at the end of the day, it's an illusion of separateness that destroys us. And you'll hear that phrase from me very many times, the illusion of separateness, which has been used also for conquest to the advantage of certain people over other people. And it is created, when we were children, we learned about divide and rule as a colonial mechanism. It wasn't new, but it has even become worse. A use of making people feel they are so different. But at the deepest level, they are really so similar, that human search for meaning. And they are not only are they similar, but they also share a lot in their histories. We share a lot in our histories. And so at this very moment, I'm fascinated, for example, by the work of Carl Jung. And if you look at the work of Carl Jung eventually comes to find answers in the indigenous cultures across the world. He traveled around the world, including our cultures, and said, at the deepest level, humanity shares the same source, the same root of meaning, if you like. This is my own language, obviously. But he found that the indigenous cultures had kept closer to it when Europe, if you like, and the Western world wandered off using, the rationalistic traditions, the empiricist traditions, the Enlightenment, etc. And so it's just a chance to recover. And it's not just our chance as Africans. Our recovery is actually needed for people across the world. Yeah, because as we recover, we share what we have, and it's needed across the world. It's a heritage that belongs to everyone. Yeah. Sorry, that's a very long answer to
That
a
is
simple.
perfect. I mean, I could just sit here and listen to you keep going and going. I'm just like, I don't even want to interact because I so resonate with that, and having been introduced to psychology from a very Western perspective and embraced it, having grown up as a Christian, there is so much, I don't know what you call the illusion of what? Separation.
Separateness, yeah.
Yeah, the illusion.
Separation,
Yeah,
yeah.
there's so much I realize I, as a person, as a practitioner, as a Christian, I have embraced as well,
Yeah.
and there is just that dividing line. This is not spiritual. This is not spiritual enough. No, don't go down that road. It's really dark, and things like that. And yet, before all this,
Yeah.
Africans had their own ways of wisdom, of healing, of wholeness. So when you talk about that illusion of separateness, where do you think it came from?
This may not be the full answer, but I am actually very interested in, I think the developments in Western Europe around about the 16th, 17th century, from the time of the Renaissance, the Reformation, the Enlightenment. What happened is a kind of competition grew. There had been a monolithic kind of culture across Europe, perhaps, and the powers that be dominated everybody. Then you have new knowledge coming back through the Moors, through people from Africa, people from across the Arab world. And as people begin to get enlightened, to get new notions of truth that is not dominated by church, if you like, the Catholic Church predominantly, it scared the authorities. And there began a reaction of, we must guard our truth. We have the whole truth. Nobody else has the truth. And to circumvent that story and just bring it to us here, because we want to talk about the African experience. I, for example, come from a family that experienced the alienation of a divided Christianity. Because we received a divided Christianity on this continent. So my family, I have cousins who grew up in Protestant communities on both sides, my mother's side, my father's side. And my family was sitting in the middle as a Catholic family, clearly they all loved us, but clearly they also felt that we were to be kept at a distance because we were Catholic. But we also felt we have to keep them at a distance because, they're suspicious, Protestants, So that was very much a part of the package and is very much a part of the package that one receives in terms of even identity. But it's a very uncomfortable shape to be in. You could not, you don't feel happy with your world. Your world, part of your world is, as I said before, contraindicated, and yet it's your world. So, you feel conflicted right from the start. And I think that has continued. Of course, there are academic traditions alongside the religious breakup in Europe that then became these churches broken and all that. There was also the division of knowledge into various disciplines, psychologies, sociology, whatever. And before that, there had been a lot of kind of unity. Everybody studied the same liberal arts, and from there, then you could branch off to this, that. So as things were becoming, science was becoming more differentiated. It seemed to divide so much. And it came to speak as if to say, you can only know things a certain way. You cannot, if you are a scientist, you cannot accommodate a different way of knowing. Or if you accommodate a different way of knowing, it's like that one you approach in a particular, the wholeness of the person became compromised, right? And so our lives were cut into pigeonholes of what am I dealing with now? And in this space, in medicine, we must only trust so and so. We cannot trust anybody else because they are the authority.
Right.
In this area, we must only trust so and so. And the whole idea of authorities keeping the guardianship of, it's like the guilds from traditional societies across the world. They are the secret knowledge groups. And so that has, I think it's a kind of competitive spirit. But at the end of the day, if we realize and if we kind of keep it in the foreground of our mind, if you like, that wellness and wholeness of people is at the end of the day the purpose of every one of our adventures. Yeah. And that has not been kept in mind. And what has been kept in mind is markets and trading and domination and taking over. And so I must show that mine is the best so that we destroy yours so that you buy into mine. And then I am dominating. And, much as it is behind cultural imperialism, it's behind economic imperialism. But at the end of the day, it actually eats away everything. It's even into the family because people get absorbed into that kind of economy. And I'm not talking about economy in the narrow sense. I'm talking about economy in the sense of everything that we do, our cultures, our religions, our education, how we make a livelihood. People are absorbed in that, in a way, in a life of domination. And so even a family, instead of focusing on the well-being of its members, frequently they are caught up in the rat race of fitting in this economy that has taken over everything. And that's a very difficult choice to kind of face, where you have to decide, am I going to be part of this, or am I going to really intentionally choose to seek a path that brings greater wholeness? Because when you're in the path of fragmentation, everybody's running. The center does not hold. There is nobody at home to build the family. And I'm not talking about an individual person, as in a mother or a father. I'm talking about the consciousness of the family as building together being very, very important. For many people, that's lost. And it continued to get more and more lost. It's more lost for my generation than it was for my mother's generation. And it's likely to get more lost for the next generation because we are modeling more and more this running around than pulling together, calmly finding our identity and connecting.
Yeah.
So I think the choice of connection is a very important choice for wholeness.
Yeah. And has to be very intentional.
Absolutely.
I know you have mentioned probably the answer to this, what I'm going to ask, but I would like to sort of consolidate and ask then what are we losing out at? What is this fragmentation and this illusion of separatedness? What is it costing us?
What is it costing us? It's actually costing us our very life. In answering that question, I have in my mind's eye a young person. If you think of a young person in a family, maybe they're just finishing secondary school and preparing to go to third cycle education, studies, and they are alone. They are alone because though they meet up with friends, the questions they have, we don't have a language for asking the deeper questions of life. And if you ask those questions, you look like you're strange. It's like we have reduced our conversations to things that bring maybe money, pleasure, and being woke, being in being in whatever it is that is.
Things,
yeah. And this child does not connect much with the family because the family isn't there to be connected with. People are busy. People are gone here. People are gone there. And when with other things. So long as you're there, you're present, you're doing the motions, there is no real accompaniment. And this is what we are losing. There's no storytelling. There's no family time. There is no time to have a lot of fun. And even if we do, we don't know what to talk about because we've lost the art of sharing and sharing memories, which looks like a waste of time. And the gadgets take over. And so this is what we are losing. This person then ends up feeling alone in the world, odd, because they don't know that the questions they don't have the language for the questions they have. And even if they could, they think they are odd. And so very easily they spiral into depression and separate a sense of separation. Well, nothing could be further from the truth. The other people are being separated by the same thing, but we don't know how to bridge the divide. We almost need to learn language, the language for conversation, the way to waste time together and to keep remember and tell anecdotal memories. Those are the things that build people together. And we have somehow lost that art, which was very, very central to our way of being as African people. So, and I think as people across the world, but especially as African people, getting together, common leisure time. So leisure, not just work, which is communal, but also leisure is communal, and everyone has a role to play. And we can restore that, but we need to make the choice to do that and not accept the easy way that goes into, as you say, gadgets and being in line with everyone else. You are connected to people, as we have said, people are saying they're connected. They have many online virtual friends, but no real friends and no real companionship in life. And so I think that's what we are losing. And we've lost the art of walking together. We live under the same roof, but we don't walk together. We may eat the same meal, but we are not really spiritually accompanying one another. We may go, we have also, what do you call it? Like, it's like we have given away the roles to other institutions, the spiritual journey to someone else, the education journey to someone else. At the end of the day, there's nobody responsible but you, the family. The family is the first community responsible for the spiritual journey, for the companionship, or for the education journey, for the wellness journey. It's not the hospital. It's not the counselor. It's not. It's us. It's us at the home. And then and the next cycle of support is actually not those professional bodies or institutions. It's the next of kin. Yeah, your brother's family, your sister's family. So that what we used to call the extended family is actually the most and authentic next circle of support, which we need again to create time for, however difficult that gets. And I don't think it's that difficult because at the end of people rush through the 30s and the 40s, and by the end of the 50s, they're coming down to realize there was nothing to rush about. We need to get together. We need to enjoy each other's company. We also need to stop being in competition and be, companions on the journey. So competition is another thing that has entered our unhealthy competition has entered our way of being together that destroys actually families. So a brother is competing with a sister about their children. Which of our children is more intelligent? Which one has won which accolades? And it's so fickle, and yet it does very lasting damage, that competition. Yeah, 10 years later, nobody remembers the accolade, but the division, it's
Was
you anyway, and
created, yeah.
alienates, it persists. Yeah. And so we need to have a sense of vision and nothing will be more important than people, the people who belong to us. So I would like to say the most important thing is the sense of belonging.
Right.
The sense of belonging. This young man who is lonely, he doesn't have a sense of belonging. He has food, he has shelter, he has clothing, but he is at large in the world. He has no sense of belonging. Everybody needs to feel they belong and to know that they belong to one little circle and another circle around it, and then we can really we can turn up for ourselves. And that's what we need to teach our families to do, to recreate family time, to recreate community time, and to prioritize people. To prioritize people.
Yeah, and I always say that the best solutions are the simplest. I think in this whole trying to specialize, trying to control, trying to do all those things, trying to be the better one, trying to be the one who is offering solutions, we have really complicated.
And lost so
Yes,
much.
and lost
We've
so
lost,
much.
yeah, we've lost the lifeline.
Yes,
The lifeline, which is that belonging.
in that sense
You
of,
are so right.
yeah. So I guess now let's just then go into that space. So what do we do? What are these? I know that you really work well at the intersection between positive psychology, of course, psychology as a whole, positive psychology, and our indigenous ways of healing, the African wisdom that is there that we have lost, and not really lost. It's there. We haven't just drawn onto it. We have not just touched on it. So just give us, highlight that space for us.
Yeah. And as I said, this search has been ongoing for many years. And it was, when you talk about the healing, the indigenous ways of healing, the funny thing is when you talk about healing, we are coming from a mind of unwellness, sickness. People are already sick, you see.
Yeah.
But healing actually, even etymologically, has the same root with wholeness.
Okay.
And the focus ought to be wholeness. What brings and maintains wholeness. So that healing can look as if it belongs to the same dynamic of compartmentalized. My finger is sick, so I take it to the hospital, now it is healed. But it's not my finger which is sick. When my finger is sick, I am sick. The whole body is sick, the whole system is sick. And guess what? My family is sick because they have to struggle with, whatever it is. So the whole body needs to respond to this sick illness, which is there. And that I'm using this symbolically, obviously. So and positive psychology agrees with African tradition, where you are all about being whole, about being well, about abundance of life. When you talk about African tradition, it's about abundance of life. So when we are unwell, it is the exception rather than the rule. We want to maintain the wholeness. Wholeness we don't take for granted. We maintain it by following certain traditions of care, certain traditions of working together, certain traditions of resting together, rituals of all the things that we do. We maintain wholeness, well-being. So you can hear the language of positive psychology belongs very well in that whole idea of abundance of life. We want to maintain it. We do not wait until it has collapsed and then start scampering to heal. So, of course, when it has collapsed, we do have to heal and work at healing. But the normal day-to-day task of our life is the maintenance of wholeness and the enjoyment of wholeness and the appreciation of what brings wholeness. And so you see it in every culture, indigenous culture, and you also see it. This is what positive psychology is proposing. For example, when we find what are your strengths, let's work with our strengths. We shine your strengths and we shine my strengths and we shine somebody else's strengths and the whole family enjoys it or the whole community enjoys it. So that's how we maintain this wholeness idea. And that is why I find the two work together very well. It is not to assume there is no unwellness. When there is unwellness, we have a lot of resources to galvanize to meet unwellness.
Yeah.
So it's not, again, a pigeonhole approach where I go to one specialist alone who deals with this thing and it's kind of separate from anything else. There is a way in which the Western or modern Western, sometimes I use them interchangeably, approach to healing, almost already makes you feel like you are going for more unwellness by being alienated, isolated. It's like the approach of separation as a healing way. I'm going to this specialist. This specialist said I should do this, I should do this. And I think at the deeper level, there is a question. Why so much separation? How about finding the resources in the community, in the family, that can help us come together, especially when it comes to psychological and wellness, people suffering depression, anxiety, etc. I think we need to sit with it. And I don't mean this absolutely literally, but at the end of the day, there is a point at which where we need to be telling each other, this is our challenge. It's not one person's challenge.
Yeah.
It is and I know that you experienced that yourself when you're working with children, and then you discovered, oh my goodness, we have to work with parents because it's not about the child alone. If it's the sickness or the wellness, it's actually in the family. In the family. So we need to get and say, what is happening? What is in our community that is generating anxiety in one of us? What have we not been able to welcome in their beauty, in what they bring to the richness of our community that is alienating them? Yeah. So that because we have a part in it. And unless we own that we have a part in it, it becomes very difficult to actually have sustainable healing. So that's what we call wholeness. This person will keep on spiraling because they're standing alone. In our African traditional families, every family had a healer.
Okay.
Healing was not outsourced, first of all, to the medicine man. Every family had its own medicine man, a medicine person, people who understood, because we relate with the nature, with the plants around us. We know the milk from the sheep that heals your goat. You don't need to go to the medicine man's goat to get milk for your eye that's gotten sick. This is knowledge that we shared and used. It's only when something exceeds a certain amount that you may seek the wisdom of somebody a little bit more qualified or somebody who deals with bigger challenges. But again, it's a family challenge that we are addressing. So we are working always together. And so I think, again, if you look, most people understand our African culture. And sorry, I'm going back to the earlier question. We tend to understand our African culture through the prism of Western eyes.
Yeah.
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 And so, and the Western eyes, which came in the context of that fourth century history of domination and conquest and competition, had to crush competitors in order to win. And so you had to crush the African medicine system or the African spiritual system in order to bring victory to your own. And then the people who have tended to be leading societies today in Africa are people who got predominantly a Western education. They look at traditional medicine systems, which our people still use, as kind of backward, kind of suspect. So at the foreground of most of our knowledge is the exclusion of any of the wisdom that we had from the past, which is very unfortunate because people still seek it and people still have a lot of faith in it, and it does good. But it also means that a lot of it got lost, got wasted, and got seen in a prism of negativity,
Yeah.
as backward, as fetish, you know, as magical,
Demonic.
so to speak. Yeah, as demonic,
Mm.
as not scientific enough, if you
Right.
like.
Yeah.
Never mind that science today is beginning to return to the unity with the spiritual and the metaphysical systems of wholeness that, quantum science and what have you, quantum physics, etc. Never mind that, because we are still caught up in mechanistic ways of looking at the world. I don't know why we are not keeping up with a more holistic, even scientific approach, even in our healing systems, which Africa already had. We are not saying that we had all the answers. We are growing. We were growing. We were not a static community. We may not have changed as fast as societies change today, but we were certainly not static. And when I tell my students or people about African culture or African, they seem to think it's something in the past and stuck there. It is not. It's something that keeps improving itself. It is, and it was always that way. But at the deeper level, we guarded the union with each other, the union with the spirit world, the union with the earth, the union with God. And that's what provides the wholeness. It's the source of the wholeness, the union. And when we restore ourselves to the union, we can do all sorts of other different things at the mechanistic level, at the material level. We can have the conversation with, but we must come back to the union. If we compromise the union, no amount of magical things you do out here are going to heal the community. So the union must be guarded, and the family is the first, most important institution, if you like, or of milieu for guarding this union. There is no replacement. No church can replace it. No institution can replace it. It has to be family.
Family. So
It
again,
has to be.
now then coming now to the practical part of it, then what can families do having this background? And I like what you have said, that the solutions are really within us. That is the positive psychology, framework right there, that we actually have. When we see a problem, when we see an issue, let's lean back, let's step back, let's ask,
Yeah.
what resources do we have? So in a practical way, to just gain this wholeness, thinking about the wisdom from the African resources that we have, what can families do and communities?
Yeah, what can families do? The first thing is to choose time for each other,
Right.
time to be together. We cannot build it without being there. So we
Mm.
have to be present, and we have to be perhaps even lost for what are we telling each other. But we come with a disposition of positivity that these are people I love. I'm happy to be with them. We are sitting around. We've got a challenge. We are willing to speak about, to be vulnerable with each other. To be vulnerable with each other. Again, I don't know who gave the people the impression, ourselves, the impression that the African man was always very strong and never. It's true, you are expected to be strong, but there was moments for vulnerability. And vulnerability was actually part and parcel of the way our rites of passage were conducted, so that you knew out of your vulnerability came your strength. And you could always go into the depth of that and really meet, the strength comes actually from vulnerability. And so we don't have time for going into the details of that. But what I do want to say is that people need to, first of all, have, what Carl Rogers calls unconditional positive regard.
Yeah.
It is not an invention. It is
Right.
what we do at
It's not
family
a
level.
theory out there.
It's not a theory out there. It's
Yeah.
something we do at family level. The first thing we do is let's have that unconditional positive regard at family level. Make the family a very safe space where people can actually break down, people can talk to each other, can express love, can express fear, can express confusion, and not feel that they must have all the answers. Parents, you don't have to have the answers for your children. Create the space for raising the questions. That's what your guide, that's your role is, to create the space that people can raise questions. I know people scamper for answers. What will I say? And I find a specialist to give an answer. You don't need to do that. First of all, children need to be heard. Spouses need to be heard. Many women will tell you when they share their problem with their husband, they're actually not looking for a solution. They are looking for an ear, for a hearing. So let's grow that softness to hear the question and to stay without an answer, because the answer then comes. People find their own answers, or together, even the youngest member of the family may say something that becomes an insight that becomes the answer for the biggest person in the family, if you like. So I think that's the first step, is really to learn. And I wish therapists and educators like yourself, family educators, would help families learn to be together, just sit together, or to share memories. To share anecdotal memories of fun or of meaning or of, like to be able to tell a story. I was very surprised when my father said this. I was only 10 years old, and those are powerful stories. The most important things you can pass on to your children. What your father said to you and it surprised you, or a moment. Those are things they will be using way after you're gone. They are lifelines.
Right.
Make time for those. When I tell people that they need to share stories, they're wondering which stories. Where will they get stories? When we talk about our histories, our African history, I'm not talking about what is in the textbook. I'm talking about your family history.
I love that.
Where did your grandfather come from? How did they make a living? What mistakes did they make? What did they learn? Yeah. And how about your grandmother? And what did they say? Like my great grandmother had a big impact on my life. And not herself directly, though I knew her and have interesting stories to remember of my encounters with her. But more importantly, because she had such a strong thumbprint on my mother, whom she brought up. It was her granddaughter. She was, during the colonial system, the way things were organized, my mother ended up spending more time with her grandmother than with her own mother, though her mother was alive. And the point is, this was a very strong woman who had suffered a lot. She had been an orphan, she had been a widow, and she had to survive and come through all that. And it was, there were patriarchal developments that made life very difficult for women in those kinds of situations. So she became very tough, and she had a name for her toughness. But when my mother, who is a very Catholic woman, wants to speak about anything or want to speak about faith and all that, you can see the real root of her faith and her endurance is her grandmother, my great grandmother. She's the one who taught her that you've got to be tough, you've got to be clear what you want, you've got to be able to negotiate, you have to care for your neighbor. Some things my mother is saying, no, they don't come from church teaching. They come more from the experience. And guess what? I keep telling my students as well, who want to be very good Christians, some of them are very, very, very devoted to being Christians, the only Christian you will ever make is an African one. So be a very good African, very rooted. You can't be another kind of a Christian. You have to be an African Christian. And I have seen it with my mother, whose real Christian roots are her Africanness, her African womanhood, right? And so I just want us people to pass on the stories, pass on the family stories when you sit around. And they don't need to be long and systematic. They just need to be anecdotal. This happened, and then we did this, and when we met this, and some jokes last in families for generations. Those are the very real gems that must be passed on. But you need to make time to pass them on. It's more important to pass them on orally than to write them, because the milieu of sitting around and telling that story is a formative milieu. It's not very, very difficult. Let's tell the stories, but let's also have little rights of reconciliation. When children make mistakes, or how do we reconcile? Let's have reconciliation in little memorable ways, so that people know that healing is a journey we are walking together. We are not diabolized, and our mistakes are not something to be terribly ashamed of. They are moments for stepping up and moving forward. So create a family way of reconciling when things go wrong, so that people can remember we were reconciled. It's not something that is buried somewhere and that is haunting us. Again, I say, let us restore the authority of the family for formation. And let us not accept those institutions that want to tell you the family doesn't know what to do. It is irreplaceable. The family can go for extra somewhere else, but it must be the first. It cannot be empty. It cannot be empty. Yeah. So I think those are the simple things we need to do. Have some share joyful moments, share happy memories of real life, because that is our DNA. Those stories of my great grandmother, stories of, those are your DNA, and they are life stories. And then also have moments for reconciliation when things go wrong. Let's do those, let's go through the processes of who is hurt, why are you hurt, how do you feel about it, etc. And then let's have either a hug or an exchange of something, but that really shows we are reconciled and you are more important than the mistake you made. It heals. And it enables people to and then tell stories. When we tell stories, don't just tell the success stories.
Right.
Tell the stories of failure
Yeah.
and getting on, moving ahead. Someone who really, did something stupid, as I know in my family, in the larger family, somebody who did something stupid and out of it lost a hand. But they still made a life after that. And people supported them and all that. Those are really, really deeply educational stories, deeply healing. That's the diet that we should be feeding our families, I think.
Yeah.
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 Again, for me, what's really striking me is the simplicity of the conversations, the being able to say that, look, we fight, but we let's have our own ritual of making up, because that's what we will also pass on to others. And if those things are not practiced within the family system, why? Because there are people who have made careers out of conflict resolution, and when parents come to me, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing, I'm just saying that has been an obsession. Then when parents come to me, they're like, "Can you give me a script? Can you give me a script on what to say in this?" And just helping them to shift their mindset. Because for me, one of the biggest things is you already have everything that you need to be able to provide the environment your child needs to thrive.
Yeah.
And so that's extrapolated in this conversation you're having so that we're not so disjointed. Because on the one hand, we want to embrace what we call Western because, it's been scientific. There is evidence. It's been proved. And, we go down that direction. And you know what? We haven't had that many years to gather data, to bring evidence. That doesn't mean that those ways of healing actually, or wholeness, as you say, that doesn't mean they don't exist.
Not only they exist, but also remember the scientific way of evidence collection, etc., is just one system of data collection. These stories are actually data.
Yeah.
They are our data.
Yeah.
They are living data. They are not just, and so we need to stop looking down on our own knowledge systems because we tend to do that because it never came to the classroom and got a tick. I think we became obsessed with the tick. Somebody needs to say that it's okay. But it is really the diet on which we live. And so now we are talking about indigenous knowledge and how indigenous knowledge was kept, and some of it in symbols, some of it in stories and rituals, etc. Simple rituals. People hear the word ritual, they get scared. They're imagining goats being killed and blood being...
Blood
No, no,
being
no. We're
shed.
talking about little simple ways of doing things that help people feel they are connected, because language is not enough to express all that humanity experiences. So we need symbols and rituals continue to give meaning even way beyond the performance. Words are very limited, and humans have always known that. And that is why we need those things to keep them going and to even keep creating some new rituals as we go along, because we are a creative people. And Africans, restore to yourselves the authority and the permission to do those things. We were always doing that. You don't need anybody's permission to do these beautiful things that are actually in the core of your being. You have the intuition for doing it. It comes to you naturally to hug your child, or to uphold your spouse, or to refer to your mother or your grandmother for something and bring them along. Those, trust your own creativity. I think this is one of the worst things that happened to our African people. We lost a sense of confidence in ourselves. And there's all sorts of places we can spread the blame, but that's not the exercise we need. What we need is to just come back and be. If God created us and God put us here, we are the people who are supposed to be here. And we have what it takes to recreate a new reality, a new world, a new wholeness in the home. It takes time, and you do have to give up being part of the rat race that is engineered somewhere else. You do have to make that choice, because we end up sometimes with wealth that's not helping us to wholeness. And so we miss the ball altogether. We miss it. But I think we have what it takes to do it. Having fun. Fun is not, again, we go sometimes to have fun, but the fun seems to be dictated by the market. No, let the fun be dictated by the home. Let it be dictated by what the joy that people find in the home. We've got what it takes to do this. We've got it. Yeah.
I
So
love
I just wanted to interrogate this whole idea of scientific knowledge
knowledge.
and data. I
Mm.
think there's a the falseness of it is the being espoused too much to data that is collected in a particular way that belongs, but we have our knowledge systems and they are valid.
They're valid.
And yes, and what a family story can carry. I don't know what amount of data you would need to compare. A family story is resourceful across generations. So let's use this because they are life stories. They are living stories. Yeah.
And we still have those we can go back to and even extract those stories from, if we missed out. I've seen a nephew of mine now is doing a whole history, going back to I think it's a great grandmother, and taking videos and just telling her, tell me stories. And someone else was telling me that they took their dad to visit his friend. And when they sat back and listened to them beating stories and reminding them, they just turned a recorder, something to record them. And because they didn't even want them to know, they were just like, we've got to harness this,
Yes, we got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes what you will remember is, I mean, for them it may be the content.
Mm.
For us, even hearing that is that the fact that it does happen, a friend is so, and people sit down and spend time together and appreciate one another and laugh away.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like the story, if you look at the story of the Dalai Lama meeting with Desmond Tutu, it's not like they even knew each other very much, but they created a friendship by intention. Then out of that has come the Joy Summit. And when you see these two men coming together, you can see they are standing up for something and they are playing around with each other. They hardly have a real language together. They're both speaking English, both of which they have learned English later in life, if you like,
Yeah.
not their primary language. But they are speaking a language that is deeper than the words. They are making choices for a different kind of a world. And we need many more champions doing that, especially at the home front and then elsewhere. Let's keep choosing the joy of being together, the joy of literally being, and in your whole life, even anybody listening to this needs to know your own life story is full of stories. It's actually a whole wealth of stories, of experiences, little memories. They don't have to have taken a day. It can be an hour or less, something that happened, but it marked you. Those things you remember, those are the things you need to pass on. And to see and to let the people have the fun, let them have the sorrow, let them have the tears, but let them go deep in their being. We have been feeding our people a very dry diet. It's time to feed them a deep diet. And the deep diet is our life stories and our experiences and the emotions that have accompanied them. Because emotions are absolutely necessary for building wholeness. Yeah.
Yes, I really love how you've shifted our mindset from healing to wholeness, so that we are not looking to fix anything. We're looking to just say, these are the things that we have in our communities and we can draw from. This is how we can do life. Again, the labeling of illnesses and all that has again brought the proliferation of specialists and experts. And thank you for simplifying this conversation and just really, really grounding us in the importance of the family as a resource in our own stories of every day. And as we wind up this conversation just now, just what is that final thing, word of encouragement and strength that you can give families who are watching?
I actually think I have said it. I want people to know that they have what it takes to build wholeness. You can actually go even through major tragedies as families, maybe divorce, maybe separation, maybe even death sometimes, and we feel like we can't come around. There is no way to life except through what it is we are going through. But we have what it takes to go through together. Lean on each other, trust the moment, be authentic, and know that your whole life, from the time you can remember, has been preparing you for being the alive person you are now, and you can be now. So don't cut out some parts of your life or some parts of your memory or some parts of your family history, your grandmother's experience, whatever it is. Those are resources that have been invested in your life. Gather them, cherish them, and share them. You have what it takes to bring greater wholeness to your home and to yourself, to your home, your children, your whole family. You are the one who is here, and it's not a mistake. Together we can do it.
Together, the Ubuntu spirit.
Ubuntu spirit, absolutely.
Yeah.
Sisi pamoja.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Wairimu, for just bringing such wisdom with such gentleness, and reminding us that we don't have to be fragmented. We don't have to separate ourselves from African and Western, and helping us see that we are more alike really than we are different. And I know many of us who are watching have carried a lot of healing just from this conversation, or is it wholeness from this conversation? And for those who would like to get in touch with Wairimu, we will have all her details in amongst the resources in the summit. So just look out for those resources that are alongside this conversation. Thank you so much for giving us your time, Wairimu.
Thank you. I have enjoyed this conversation. And I feel a lot of hope because there is a resurgence of recognition that, yeah, we've got some great resources.
Yeah.
And I think together, together we can change, we can turn this thing around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These are
Yeah.
exciting times to have these
Yes.
conversations.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so. I think so. And hold on to the bit you got, bring it on, and together we can build it together. And thanks for making this summit. It should be a first of many, Dr. Carol, I think.
I believe
And
so. I believe
so
so.
let's gather also feedback so that we can, have many more that we improve on this. And what more do we need to generate so that, yeah, as you say, we build this together and we own it together. It's not this colonization approach that this is mine and no one else can have this, but us creating a new world of everyone is included and we are in.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Congratulations on the summit.
Thank
Bye.
you very much. Yeah, it's been a very interesting journey doing it.